We have a meeting today. We have 10.
We'll have at the end. So yeah.
That means everybody has to stand.
All right. So we were to get to the top of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. All right. 2 dots, top of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, and the way we go. The Seich Hakain, we're discussing over here. Person, remember, you can go ahead and use the chicks that were designated from before Yantif, but on Yantif, it's they're moksha, so they have to be muchan, they have to be prepared. So we're talking about different cases. A person designates some, and he comes back and he finds it a little differently. So one case was they were in the nest, the chicks, and then he comes back and he finds them outside. So we saw this earlier. Let's say there's a group of Rechanina who holds if you have two concepts against one another. One is a rove, majority, right? Now, majority of the birds in the world are not the ones in the nest. Those are outside, right? It's the majority. But the karov is the ones in the nest, right? So we see here, you go after the majority. We assume that these birds are from somewhere else, not the birds he doesn't, and therefore they're muksa. We're talking about a case of where there was a daf, there was a board in front, and therefore it was very common for to have outside birds there, and therefore since there are always outside birds there, therefore we say that it wasn't only rove, it was also karov because the outside birds are always there also. And we're talking about two holes, one on top of the other. And then what's the chiddush over here is like this. Not only a case of where he's ziman b'tachtoina, he designated the bottom ones, and he did not designate the top ones. Right? That he found them on the bottom one, he didn't find the top one. Right? In that case, is asurin. Right? So we say that these that were there, they went away. The hinach and the ones that are there, right? These ones that were there, they went down to the lower one. So he designated the ones in the top one, and he did not designate that in the bottom one. And then he comes and he finds, right, the ones in front of the upper. And he doesn't find on the bottom one. Nami asiri. Well, these are also why. Darmina hinach azlalama. The hinach surucha v'sluchu. Right, the ones that are now on the top, outside the ones, those climbed up. It's even to go down is a little easier, but to go up, maybe we don't say that. So we say no, that the ones they designated flew away, and the ones that are now outside the other pigeonhole, those are the ones from the bottom, and they managed to go ahead and climb up. If, however, there's no other birds in the area, then we say hare elim mutar. Then, even though they might be in a different space, nevertheless, they are the ones they designated. So, what's the case? If we're talking about, right, in general cases, birds that can fly. So, these are the ones that were there. Since they're flying birds, right, there's no restriction on their flight, so therefore, we can never assume it's the same birds, right? So rather, we're talking about birds that can hop, right? Similar to the ones in the Mishnah, right? So the Ika came to say if we're talking about that their nest is within 50 amos, right? In other words, then they can go hop from one to the other. Understand, if there's no other pigeonhole within 50, then it's obvious as mutter. They don't hop away more than 50 amos. So if obviously there's nothing else within 50 amos and they're found within 50 amos, it should be them because we know they don't hop in 50. So my answer is really there is another one within 50, right? So why do we necessarily say it's the same ones? Ukagon dekaima b'keren zavis, right? And it's in one corner. So Malzima, what would you have said? Maybe we say they hopped along, and these are the same ones. So Kamashman, in other words,
they don't fly; they only hop.
They only hop, but
they're high in the air, aren't they?
So they can. I guess they hop along. I guess they're by their pigeonhole or along things that are around for them to be on. But they only go a distance of only go a distance of 50 amos. And that which you said they go 50 amos, it's only if they turn back and they see their nest or so they started from. But if they don't go, if they can't see it, then they're not, even if it's within 50, they're not going to go beyond 20. Because once their home is out of sight, they're not going to hop further. So the chiddush is, even there is other birds within 50 amos. Since those birds are around the corner, they would never go around that far where it cannot be seen.
When they say the forest is hopping, it doesn't literally mean hopping, it means short flights. It means it always scoot from like one branch to another.
So the branch to the other.
It will jump across.
Right.
Well, it's not just jumping, they have to go down to the ground.
But they can, they will do that.
And
But they won't soar across, across the parking lots.
They can fly down, they can fly across, they can fly up, but they can't really fly across.
They don't.
All right, whatever,
Right.
let's go. Come on, all right.
So it's usually have the birds outside their house, the parrots or whatever. They clip the wings. Yeah.
It says that these are very young birds.
Right. Well, these are ones, right? Well, that's right. So that's what Ozzy's difficulty was. Well, I understand they can't fly. So are they in the tree? Are they on the ground? Like, what's going on here? So Zevi wanted to say that maybe
Kind of flutter.
that's what Zevi wanted to say. So
Well,
all right.
Ornithologists now.
all right. Zak the Mishnah. Mishnah says Beishami Yomi Mein Neitlin Es Alila Katsev Alav Basar. One cannot go ahead and take a pestle to go ahead and chop meat on it. We saw this earlier where we wanted to bring a stira and Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. So he brought from several Mishnahs to try and question on our original Mishnah to ask, why is Beis Hillel Machmer? These cases, Beis Hillel usually Makil. So all the Mishnahs we brought really from this, the next couple of Mishnahs we're saying. So we saw this, you can't take it to go ahead and chop meat. Beis Hillel says mutter to go ahead and bring it to go ahead and chop meat on for Siyata Beishami. You can't go ahead and take hide in front of people to go ahead and walk on it, right? Because it's you're making the hide, you're making the leather, right? By having people walk on it. And you can't even move it, right, at all, unless there was a kazayis meat on it, because then it is fit for yantif, because you can go ahead and cook that meat. Oh, Beis Hillel matir. Beis Hillel matir is both says no, you can move it because there's a purpose to it. You can sit on it. So let's see the Gemara. Zok the Gemara. First case was with the pestle. Satana the shavin shin katzav alav basar she'asa taltala. They both agree, right, that if he went ahead, right, and then he chopped meat on before, then he can't go ahead and move it afterwards. And Amar Abaye, machlokes bali. This machlokes is referring to the case of the pestle. Betavra garmi divra kol motor, but it's used, let's say, a chopping board used for meat, right? Chopping board used for meat. Then we'll say that it's motor to move it even afterwards. So he says, Pshita ali tanan. Yeah, Mishnah says we're talking about a pestle. We're not talking about a chopping board. So he says, no, maybe even this butcher's board, right, that you can't go ahead and move it afterwards. And the reason why it said a dafka pestle to tell you the extent of Beis Hillel's kula, that even something whose normal usage is usher, such as to be crushing wheat, right, which is usher. So even something that klisha malach to lister, you can go ahead and use it, right, for this case, kamash malon, that you're allowed to go ahead and use the board which is normally used for chopping chopping meat to be mutter afterwards. And Ika the Amri, some have a different version. Amar Abaye, that which Abaye says, right, only to teach you by a new one. So maybe you'd say if you go ahead and pick up a new chopping board, but you haven't used it yet, and then he's going to decide he's not going to use it, and therefore he's going to go ahead. He doesn't want to start it already or ruin it, and therefore he'll be moving something on yantiv unnecessarily, right? Which perhaps could be an issue of moksa kamash malon. We're not worried about using a new chopping board. And Beis Shammai is not concerned about changing one's mind afterwards. We learn in a brayso Beis Shammai ein molichin tabach v'sakin etzel behema. We don't go ahead and basically bring the knife all the way, and also the sheikh all the way to the animal. In other words, we're worried about carrying the knife for no use. You carry the knife, and then all of a sudden you decide not going to use it, right? So you can't go ahead and walk the knife to the animal, and you can't go ahead and walk the animal to over there because we're worried, right, that he might change his mind.
You can carry it.
Right, you can carry a yantif, but we're worried about doing extra, exerting,
You can't do muktzah, you can't carry muktzah.
right. And even it was for the purpose. But if you change your mind, then you
This is a slaughtering knife, and you have in mind to slaughter.
right.
But he might change his mind, that's the whole point.
No, and if you change your mind, so then you're handling something that wasn't needed on yantif, right? Dilma, right? Basa the tarach mamlich, right? Because afterwards, as I'm just reading from Rashi, right? After he's tareach, then he decides, I'm not going to do it. So he was tareach for no reason. That's what we're worried about. The tircha for no reason. Even though it's not
carry something if you have a purpose for using it. If you no longer have a purpose for using it, then you're not allowed to carry it.
But we're talking about, but that's not the issue. We're talking about tircha. It's talking about tircha.
Why not even talk about being outdoors?
Right. We're not talking about hotzah. We're talking about tircha. We're talking about tircha, not hotzah. It's not an issue of hotzah. So the Beis Hillel says, no, you can do it. And Beis Shavi, can't go ahead and bring spices or a pestle to the mortar, right? Or the mortar all the way to the pestle. Now, Hachi hashta. Let's understand the difference. I understand when it comes to the case of the animal, he might go ahead and change his mind. So nashbikai behema kchusha. My sin behema achri to the shavimine. I understand it. He brings the animal there and decides, you know what? Let's go ahead and find a fatter animal. There's not enough meat on this animal. Let it get bigger. Or even maybe a dish will say Delmar and Nishbak Hai Kader, the boy in Tavlin. Let's go find something that doesn't need so many spices. I'm not in the mood to do all the spices. However, but in the case of the butchering board, right? Why would he change his mind? I understand the other cases, right? Beishame might say he'll change his mind, right? The animal's not too skinny, or the or the dish. Let's just go find a dish that's already spicy enough. But what is this changing mind when it comes to the wood chopping board? So so came in the shachta, right? We're talking about there's meat around, so you get what else do you have to chop the meat before you're not going to eat the meat as is. You have to chop it up first. So therefore, maybe even Beis Shammai in this case will say that that you can handle it. And Beis Shammai a niceness, or Beis Shammai says you can't go ahead and put the hide in front of people who are going to walk on it. They're going to go ahead and part of the tanning process is pounding on the trampling on top of the hide. So Tadav Shavin Shemalichin Alav Basar Litzli. They all agree that you can go ahead and salt meat in order to go ahead and to roast it. Now, normally part of the tanning process is also salting it. You also salt the hide, but since there's some basar on the hide, and even though some of the salt is getting in the hide, that's okay. You're allowed to salt it for the purpose of roasting. Only for roasting, but for cooking, low. Then it's not, because there's much more salt used for cooking. So the says pshita litzli tonight. It says litzli. So how come ashmalan? Litzli kein kedera aser. Even if you go ahead and it's for roasting, but you salt it like you would for cooking a lot, then it would be aser. Tana Rabban. Ein molichin asa chalavim ve'ein mahafchim behet. One cannot go ahead and salt pieces of fats. Now, even though the fats are forbidden to eat, but you can go ahead and use it for other usages, such as for fuel or other usages of the fats. So you can't go ahead and salt it, and you can't go ahead and turn them over, so they don't go ahead and spoil or to go bad on Yantif. Mishum Rabbi Shuam. The name of Rabbi Shuam said, "Shait k'meruach al gabi yisedos." However, you can go ahead and spread it out al gabi yisedos. And Amar Rav Masna haloch Rabbi Shuam. Haloch is like Rabbi Shuam. And said Ikadam, so say Amar Rav Masa. Ein haloch Rabbi Shuam. The halacha is not like Rabbi Shuam. You can't go ahead and handle it and put it and spread it out over these 4 stakes or pegs, whatever. So Bishlam the man demer halach Rabbi Shua Yitzchak Sakadai Sachamina Yachid Rabbi halach Karab. So It makes sense for the one who says halacha is like Rabbi Shua because he's arguing the rabbanon, and so it's yachid v'rabim. Halacha is normally rabim. You have to tell the kamash malon halacha yachid. In this case, halacha is like Rabbi Shua. Elman there ain't halacha, but the one who says it's ain't halacha pshita yachid v'rabim halacha karabim. Right? Normally it's the rabim. Right? The first one's the chamim versus the yachid. Right? So obviously it would be like the rabbanon. So the Gemara says no. Rabbi Shua. Right? Maybe the reasons like Rabbi Shua, right? The logical reasons why. If we don't allow him to go ahead and after he basically shucks the animal, takes the meat, in what's going to do the hide? I can't throw away the hide, or I'm not going to waste, it's hundreds of dollars. So let me go ahead and at least, hang it up. So if we don't permit it, and he's not going to go ahead and shuck the animal, and he'll prevent from Sukkos Yantif. So Kamash Malon, then nevertheless we say the halacha is not like Rabbi Shua. So why do we allow you to go ahead and put hide on the ground and people are going to walk on it? That's okay, but to go ahead and hang the hide on boards to have it air out, that's no good. So turn the page. So hasam lo mucha milsa, right over there. It's an avish. The person who puts it on the ground, right, could be used for sitting on or lying on. So therefore, the hide you're putting down, it doesn't look like you're doing it to prepare the hide. However, the name of my time is Rabbanan. So mali mishktinu, mali mim lachinu, right? In other words, if they see that, they're probably letting him hang it up in order so it doesn't spoil. So what does it make difference if they hang it up or if I salt it? We said earlier you can't salt it, so people might come to salt it if we see them hanging it up. So therefore, we say you can't go ahead and hang it up because it looks like no other reason than preventing the hide from spoiling. And Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Malech Adam Kama Chatichas Baz.
Once you skin the animal, you've got to hide. Now, what would do?
Because that's not that the hide is not oichel nefesh. The hide is not oichel nefesh, and therefore there's no heter to do malacha with the hide. So all of these are part of the tanning process. Yes, of tanning, right? So all these are part of being ma'abed to go ahead and work the hide. So Rabbi Shua says you can hang it up because you're not doing anything. Others say no, if you hang it up, people are going to come to salt it, which is a malacha. People are going to come to go ahead and work it. Right, exactly. So Beis Hillel says you can go ahead and put it on the ground. The people walk on it. People are walking on it. It's even though it is technically working the hide, but since it has other usages such as sitting on it, therefore it doesn't appear that I'm putting it out to have it worked. And therefore, if people walk on it, the people walk on it. It's no malacha. It's okay.
Okay, but we said that you couldn't do that unless it still had a kezias.
No. It's two separate cases.
Oh.
He says you can't handle it afterwards, right? You can't move it around, but you can put it there, and also you can move it if there's kezias meat on it.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
And Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Malech Adam Kama Chatichas Basar Vasachas. Person go ahead and salt a bunch of pieces of meat together, and Afbish and Tzurich El Chatich Achas. Even though you only need one, you can salt them all together. Rav Barava. Samarim Malach Garma Gama. He used to go ahead and basically do harama. He used to do a little trick and salt a lot of them together, even though he really only needed one or two. And we see that was not usher. So one would be allowed to do that. Fine. Zok the Mishnah and Yud Aleph from the days. Beisham Yomim Ein Mesalkin Esatrisin Beyontif Ubeis Hillel Matir and Aflahachs. One cannot go ahead and move the trees, these shutters on Yontif. Right, we'll soon see why. Problem of binyan, right, of building or stira, right. And Beis Hillel matir and aflahachser, and Beis Hillel says no, you can even go ahead and put them back. That's it. Samai trees, number trees chanvanios, right. These are the shutters of these shops, right, of these different vendors, right, that were in the marketplace, and these are basically not attached to the ground. They're like these booths, right? They're not attached to the ground. And these are the types of shutters we're talking about, not attached to the ground, shutters that cover up the booths. Amar Ula says Ula. There were three things that were permitted because of the beginning. In other words, we allow you to do this at the end, because if we don't allow you to do this at the end, you weren't going to go ahead and start it and do it in the beginning. These are it. Or lifnei hadorsin, right? To put hide in front of people walking on it, because if we weren't allowed to do that, then people want to have meat for Simchas Yantif, right? Utrisi Chandanios, and also the shutters of these shops, because they used to actually have their stores open on Yantif, right? People would go and they would take some wares or stuff for Yantif, and they go, okay, we'll take care of the cheshbonos. They won't do cheshbonos on Yantif, but they would take care of it afterwards. But people used to go ahead and be open, right, for Yantif. And people have for their meal, right? The chazaras v'tiyah b'mikdash, and also to go ahead and put back a bandage in the mikdash, right? The kohanim, if they had a certain bandage on their hand or something, and they wouldn't be able to do the avoda because of a chatzitza, so we allow them to go ahead and put it back on, even though people might go ahead and do, and there's a problem of refuah, or a person might come to, crush other medicines, but nevertheless, we permitted this shvus. We'll ask about shvus mikdash, but we allow them to do that in order that the kohanim will perform the avoda, or perform it properly without having a chatzitza. Rachav Omer Rabbi Yehuda, he says, so too, one opens a barrel, or he goes ahead and he starts a dough, all right, on the yontif. Now, normally we're not good there for Amei Aretz who touch it over Yantif, but after Yantif we are. So we allow that any touching that was done to it, it can still be sold to a chaver, it can still be sold to the barrel, even after Yantif, because no one will open a barrel if they weren't able to finish, selling after Yantif. This way it makes more dough and the wine available to people on Yantif. And this is according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says Yigmor, right? And by the way, Rashi points out this the Rachav Om Rabbi Yehuda, it's not referring to Rabbi Yehuda, it's referring to Rav Yehuda, because they did not live same generations, and he called him Rabbi Yehuda because he called him his Rebbe. It was like Rabbi Yehuda, his Rebbe, but it's really Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. Or Lifnei Hadorson. So he said to hide in front of people walking. So Tanina, we already learned that. What's the chiddush here? Why are you telling me these three things? So Moses have time in the base The only reason is because it's fit for people to sit on. But even if it was the hide, the animal was shechted and the hide was already prepared from Erev Yontif, right? And he puts it out on Erev Yantif, Kamash Milan, he tears Sefer Mishum Tchilas, and the Yantif in the Erev Yantif low. The hide can only be placed out if the animal was shechted on Yantif itself, but the animal was shechted from the day before, right? And you've already left it out for people to walk on, you continue to leave it out, then now you can't continue to leave it out. It's only if it was shechted on Yantif, that's what the special headers, and that's why it teaches us the Yantif, he tears Sefer Mishum Tchilas. Once again, the Gemara says, Trisei Chananios Nami Tanina, right? The shutters of these shops also we learned. So Ma'ad saying, Wojib says, Tamai the Beisil Mishum, the ain't binyan b'kelim. Maybe they hold there is no binyan b'kelim. Since the shutters are attaching to these movable booths, these movable stalls, therefore there's no binyan there. The malacha of binyan of constructing a building does not apply. So therefore maybe it doesn't apply, and therefore it never applies there. So there's no issue. These to b'kelim, they feel the debatim nami, right? And even if it was for, even if you want to go ahead and move it there inside parts of houses, right? Kamash Malon, is dafka over here that only buy these stalls, but not houses. According to Beis Hillel, you'll not be able to go ahead and replace and put in the shutters on houses. And Chazaras R'tiyah b'mikdash namitini, we also learned in a Mishnah, it says, Machzir R'tiyah b'mikdash v'lo b'medina. You can go ahead and put back on a bandage in the base of Mikdash, but not in Medina. So what's the chiddush there? Why is your opinion? So Moshe said, what's the reason? Maybe you hold there's no Shavuos b'Mikdash. Now, normally we have the malachas, right? And then we have Shavuos. We have these derabbanans, right? That go ahead and basically the derabbanans that sort of distance a person from violating the Raisa, but we don't do that in the Mikdash. The Mikdash, there is no need to have these extra, chumras or ways of distancing people from affairs, because they're in the Mikdash. They're not going to come to violate. So we hold Ein Shvus Mikdash. So putting on a bandage is only because we're worried that a person might go ahead and crush medication, right? Crush medication. So therefore, maybe there is no Shvus Mikdash at all. I feel calling the law bar avoda, even a Kohen, let's say he's not supposed to be doing the avoda, or someone who's maybe not fit, he's a balmum, whatever it is, kamash balon, hey tirusova mishum tchilas. Therefore, it teaches only the reason why we like to put a bandage on is because of the beginning to do the avoda. So the bar avoda in, lav avoda lo.
There'll be some Torah. Even though it's in the shul,
Right.
Some Torah.
Right. And therefore, if the individual, if he's not a bar avoda, he's too old, or he is a mum, or whatever it is, or he is not allowed, or he's a cholol, right? He is not allowed to go ahead and replace. And Pasech as Chavis. We also know Pasech as Chaviso, Maskil Bisa, so Algav Harek. And he starts it during the dough, or he opens a barrel. He starts it during the Yantif. Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, Yigmor. He can go ahead and sell it even after Yantif. Chachamim say no, you can't go ahead and sell it. So Mao the Tema. So we already learned this. Why'd you repeat yourself? So what would you say? Tama Tumas Amares Berego Katara Shabiraban. Maybe they hold that the tomb of our arts during the holiday itself is considered to be Tara, right? In other words, it's completely Torah. The Afa Gadol Hiskonami. And even if he didn't start it selling before, right? In other words, any touching during it, even if it was sold before, but he didn't start now. So Kamash Malon, only a Tir so and therefore he's only that started then. He's skill in lo. If it was started before Yantif, and then people, the Amaretz touched it during Yantif, you cannot sell it afterwards. It's only to allow people to open it up to begin the dough. Right, because we decreed that the Amaretz that if they would touch it, that it would be a suffix tuma. They weren't as careful, so therefore you couldn't sell to a chaver afterwards. So if you couldn't sell to a chaver afterwards, or couldn't sell after a regel, it would be a loss. So therefore, in order to prevent the loss, we say, but that which we say, if they touch it, does not become tummy. And we're only talking about if we know it's not tummy. Not talking, we're just person's amaretz, right? Obviously, you know someone's tummy, then it becomes tummy. But the point is that we only allow you to go ahead and finish selling it if it was opened on Yantif itself. If it was opened before, then this Gzeira does not apply. Ula, my time, Ula Amar, ha. So why did Ula? So this was added. Right, Ula said 3 cases, and then comes in, right? Rechav Omer Rav Yehuda says the other case. So why did Ula not include this case? She says, "Looks at Lo Kamari." He's not talking about cases of machlekes, right? This machlekes over there between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanim. Says he not looks at neither. What are you talking about? This is all these machlekes of Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. She says Beis Shammai b'makom Beis Hillel ain't a Mishnah. Right? Now, to say that Beis Shammai, when arguing with Beis Hillel, right, that's not considered to be like a fair machlokes. You know, it's always we always go like Beis Hillel, and therefore it's not really a contradiction in that case. And Masnisen, our Mishnah, Deloy Kiatan, is not like this following Tana. The Tani will learn a Bryce on Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Moedim Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, Shemasalkin as a Trisim B'Yantif. Right, that this, according to this version of the price, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree. Shemasalkin as streets of Yantif, you can remove the shutters on Yantif. Leinechu ela hachzir. Shebeis Shammai oimrim ein machzirin, uBeis Hillel oimrim af machzir. The Beis Shammai says you can't return it. Beis Hillel says you can return it. Right, because if you look at our Mishnah says that even to remove it, Beis Shammai says it's also. He says you can't remove it or put it back, and Beis Hillel says you can move or remove it, and you can also put it back. So Beis
Shammai would not have a difficulty with the somebody selling something on Yom Tov, right? In credit.
Correct.
Okay.
No one does.
And
right.
The Chanbani uses the trees to display his whatever he's selling.
Right.
Okay. But the problem is, does he permit the beginning in order to allow the end? Right.
So Beis Shammai does not permit it. Right. But he says all the way through. Right. According to our Mishnah.
Putting it back.
So we're only talking about when there is like a pivot, right? When there's pivots, right? For the windows to go in, right? But if there is no tzir, divrei kol motor. If there's no tzir, then there's no binyan, right? There's no pivots. If you just put it in, right? You're just fitting in place. There's nothing connects. There's no holes. There's nothing goes in the holes. Then it's okay. But we have another brayso that says if there's no pivot at all, right? That's what the machlokes is. But if there's no pivot, that's what the machlokes is. But there is a pivot, there is a peg to go in the hole, then everyone holds its usher, even Beis Hillel. So b'sheish then tzir minat sad divrei hakol usher. When it's on the when he says minat sad, right, from the ends, right? Then it's us. So that's talking about a case. So those of you who have art scroll, there's a picture in the art scroll. Here, I'll show you. You two right here. So there's the middle case over here.
Yeah.
Right. So over here, basically, the shutter is, there's a peg, coming out here, and you sort of, fit it in, and then it sort of swivels around, right? The two peg. That case, everybody holds as us, all right? However, so ein lensir, kol ikar, yes, ein lensir. If there is no tzir, kol ikar divrei kol mutter, everyone says is mutter. So keep pligi, one of the argue b'sheish that tzimets be'emtza. When there's one in the middle, there's one right here, and it goes in there. So that's like sort of, in, sort of out. And that's the case, the machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. So it can be Yeish and Tzir, B'yemtza. Mar Savar Gazrin and Tzir B'yemtza, Atu Tzir Minatzad. One holds that's, hey, if we're going to allow the shutters with the pivots on this, on the middle, then we're going to go ahead and permit the ones on the side, which actually you do have an issue of binyan. Mar Savar, and the other one holds, like there is no gzeira in such a case. Fine. Now your Mishnah. Mishnah says, now this is today's Daf Yud Beis, 7:15, right? 17 slichos, right? Okay. Or whenever we finish, right? Is that how it works? It's like minyan. When you finish slichos, you start the minyan. So when we finish the Daf Yomi, that's when it starts. Okay, fine. Mishnah says, Beis Shammai oimrim ein moitzin lo es hakoten v'lo es halulav v'lo es sefer Torah l'reshus harab. Right? Anything, as Rashi points out, kol milei delav tzarech achila. Now, we do allow hotzah, but we allow hotzah for something which is for achil nefesh, something which is a permitted use for eating, right? You allow for food, but to carry a cotton, a minor, a sefer Torah, a lulav, none of that is for eating. Beis Shammai says aser, right? So Beis Shammai matzin, or Beis Hillel matir. And Beis Hillel says mutter. Fine. This is the Mishnah. Zok Gemara. So Tani Tana Kamei de Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi Hasheichet Oilas Nadava b'Yantif like it. One who goes ahead and shechs and olas. Now shechting, in theory, right, is mutter, right? One can go ahead and shecht and yantif, right? Because you're allowed to go ahead and shecht and eat for an animal, eat for yantif. So he shechs an ola for an adava on yantif, which is not obligation. Like it. Why? Because there's no eating. You're not allowed to eat the ola meat. It all goes in the mizbech. So therefore, you're shechting for no purpose. Like it. So Amar Le, Damar L'Chamani. Who's this? So Beis Shammai. This must be Beis Shammai. Damar Lo Eminon Mitach Shehutra Hoitzel L'Tzarech Hutra Nami Shlo L'Tzarech. Right? It must be Beis Shammai because Beis Shammai he's learning is what's the svar Beis Shammai that you only permit Hotzah L'Tzarech Achila. For L'tzarech, right? So therefore, hotzah shalol l'tzarech achila, such as carrying a child, would not be okay. So it's over here, we only permit shchita l'tzarech achila, but not shchita shalol l'tzarech achila, which would be a carbon ola because all the meat gets put on the mizbeach. The Beis Hillel,
He doesn't hold butcher nami shalol l'tzarech.
Correct, right? That's how he's learning it right now. Right? Because Beis Hillel holds that all types of carrying is mutter, not only caring for achila, for achil nefesh, but even caring for other things. All right, so it's over here in the case of shchita, so it's over here we permit all types of shchita, even shalol l'tzarech achila, such as for a carbon ola. So maske lo rabba, so my debate Beis Hillel b'ha pligi. Who says this is the machlokes? That shalol l'tzarech or shalol l'tzarech? Dilma be'eruv hotzal l'Shabbos, be'ein eruv hotzal l'Yom Tov pligi. Maybe it's a separate thing. Maybe, right? Beis Hillel holds there's no such thing as eruv and hotzah when it comes to Yom Tov, and Beis Shammai holds there is, right? So Marsar eruv hotzal l'Shabbos ve'eruv hotzal Yom Tov. So Beis Shammai will hold that there's an issue of carrying on Shabbos and an issue of carrying on Yom Tov. And the reason why you can carry only in some cases is tzarech l'achil nefesh. Or Marsar and Beis Hillel would hold eruv hotzah l'Shabbos ve'ein eruv hotzah Yom Tov. That was we talk about the concept of eruv and hotzah only applies to Shabbos, not Yom Tov. So you can carry whatever you want. We're not permitting you to carry for achil nefesh. It doesn't apply. Why is that? Because the pasuk says, "Lo tatzi masa mivatechem biyom haShabbos." It says over there the pasuk. Over there it brings the pasuk in Yirmiyah, right? Yirmiyah. So it says over there. So it says, and don't take out from your house b'yom Shabbos. B'Shabbos, you be yontif lo. Maybe you learn over there b'dafka Shabbos and not yontif. So maybe that's what the machlokas is. Samas of Rav Yosef Elamiata, according to that, that's the case, right? If liflu be'avanim, right? Let them also have a case by avanim, right? In other words, if there is, what does it mean? I'm just looking at Rashi for a second, right? So liflu be'avanim says ein isra hotzah, ein isra tiltul. Because the reason why we have an isra tiltul, things are muksa, you can't touch a rock. Why is that? Because you might come to go ahead and carry it, right? So we want you to minimize the amount of things that you can go ahead and handle, so you won't go ahead and carry. But if you're allowed to carry as much as you want, then a rock shouldn't be muksa to, according to Beis Hillel and Yantif. So if that's the case, right, leave the be'avanim, right? I'm just reading Rashi. Right? Mashlo goes out to learn. I feel right. So it's fine. So back in the mark. So Ella made the light pligi be'avanim by the fact that they don't argue by avanim. Shmamina b'hotzah shlo tzarich pligi. It must be the original way we learned the machlokas of whether it's we permit something which is shelo l'tzarich, even because of tzarich. The af Rabbi Yochanan savar mitoch shehutra hotzah l'tzarich hutra nam shelo tzarich pligi. And even Rabbi Yochanan holds, right, that indeed is the machlokas. But that Beis Hillel Shammai as to, since we allow you to go ahead and carry for food, we also allow you to carry for other reasons. The Tana Kamei to Rabbi Yochanan, because we're talking Rabbi Yochanan, Hamavashel Gid Hanasha the Chalav B'Yontif the Achlu, right? Is not a good start. Chamesh, right? Chamesh, like a Chamesh. He gets 5 malchus. What are they? What are the 5? What did he do? What are his 5 violations? Right. So he eats it. He's like a 5. Fine. So like a mishum mevashel, like a mishum mevashel gid. Right. One is because he's cooking the gid. Now, what do you mean he's cooking the gid? He's cooking the gid. He's cooking. You're not allowed to cook on Yantif, right? Because shalol tzarich, you're not allowed to go ahead and eat the gid and nasha. It's part of the body, right? The forbidden. So you can't cook something which is not permitted, right? So like mishum mevashel gid, like mishum eichel gid, and also we said he ate it, and that's how he says that. So he's also chai for eating the gid and nasha. But like mishum mevashel basar, also he's chai for cooking milk and meat together. And he also gets malchus for eating the milk and meat. And finally, the 5th one is mishum havar, because he's kindling a fire, shalol l'tzarech achila, right? So we see this is referring to l'tzarech. And Amar Le, so hearing this, Rabbi Yochanan said, Puk tani lebra, go teach this outside. This is wrong, right? Don't teach it here. Havara ubishal eina mission, because the havara, the kindling the fire shalol tzarich, and the cooking shalol tzarich, you're not chayav for, right? It's not a mission. In other words, because according to Beis Hillel say in this case, right? Beis Hillel says you're allowed to do things shalol tzarich, right? So according to Beis, he would go like Beis Hillel. So Beis Hillel will say you're only chayav 3, right? For eating the gid and nasha, milk and meat, cooking milk and meat, and eating milk and meat, right? So those are your chayfars. So im titzalam mishnah, maybe so Beis Shammai he damri lo yamrin mitoch shut l'tzarech hutra nami shelo l'tzarech. So maybe if you hold a maybe it's Beis Shammai, so chinami. So we'd say lo yamrin mitoch shutra havar l'tzarech hutra nami shelo l'tzarech, right? Since we don't say that we permit kindling shelo l'tzarech. Di Beis Hillel, this is Beis Hillel, right? Because Beis Hillel would say that since we allow, right, the hotzah shelo tzarich, we also allow hotzah shelo tzarich. Hakanami, so over here, so over here, that we would say in this case that you're allowed to go ahead and kindle something shelo tzarich, i.e., even you're not allowed to go ahead and eat the gid anasha, you're not allowed to cook it, you're allowed to start the fire. It would be permitted. So according to Beis Hillel, so we see that Rabbi Yochanan, who would hold like Beis Hillel, obviously also agreed with our interpretation of this machlokas, and the machlokas is not that Beis Hillel doesn't hold up carrying it out. If he does, he just says anything that is permitted shelo l'tzarich is also permitted shelo l'tzarich, and therefore starting a fire would be mutter on yantif. Fine. Weiter. Sagt die Mishnah. Mishnah says, Beishamai oimrim ein molichin chala umatanos lekoin beyantif. One cannot go ahead.
That verse that was quoted, that was compared to Duncan, because
It was not Yom Kippur.
Shabbos would be.
Yeah. Yantif.
Oh, okay.
Well, because it was adding the extra thing, because of course that you'd be chayiv for kindling a fire on Shabbos, right? So now, Beishamai oimrim ein molichin chala umatanos lekoin beyantif. You can't go ahead and take your chala or your matanos kahuna, right? So there's different parts of the zroa, the chayim, the keva, part of the jaw, right? The leg, right? The part of the stomach, right? Those that you give to the kohen from every animal. So you're allowed to separate those. It's not considered to be masakin, right? You're allowed to do that also for challah, right? You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to be matir, the hafrasha, right? But, right, you're not allowed to go ahead and bring it to them. Whether you went ahead and separated them yesterday, right? So you can't bring the challah matanos to the kohen on yantiv, whether you separated yesterday or today. Okay? Beisil matir. Beis Hillel says it's mutter. So we're talking about Yontif, not Shabbos, right? So according to Beis Hillel, whether I was mafresh, the challah or matanos, we're going to refer to matanos, these are the gifts to the Kohanim, right? From the meat, they're gifts to the Kohanim. So whether I did it yesterday or today, right now, Beis Hillel says it's always mutter to go ahead and carry it to the Kohanim, and Beis Shammai says you can't go ahead and carry it to the Kohanim. There is no use for the Kohanim, and therefore you violate Yantif. Fine. Amar lehen Beis Shammai, says Beis Shammai to Beis Hillel, so Gzeir Shava, right? I'm going to go ahead and make a Gzeir Shava, right? All right. He's just going to, not exactly Gzeir Shava, the way we normally look at it, but he says, I'm going to go ahead and basically use some logic, right? Chala matanos, matan lekohen, right? So the chala matanos are gifts to the Kohanim. Utruma matan lekohen, and truma is also matan lekohen to the Kohanim. Now we know there's a halacha that you're not allowed to be separate truma on yantif. So that's going to be the big difference here. That's tikkur. You're going to be misakin, right? So chala, matanos, you're allowed to do on yantif. Truma, you can't. But we say over here, so chala, matanos, matan lekohen. Utruma, matan lekohen. Right? Seven states. Kshem shem olich, and I said truma, and just like you can't go ahead and bring truma to a kohen on yantif, kachem elichin is matanos. So Amalam Beis Hillel. Lo, even marta truma she'eno zaka baramasam. Matanos shezaka baramasam. No, because on the kohanim, right? They don't get any rights on yantif to the truma, as opposed to chala and matanos that they do. So you can't compare the two, because basically chala and the matanos can be separated on yantif. So therefore, you can't compare their delivery to the delivery of the truma. So that was the back and forth in our Mishnah. Fine. Let's see the Gemara. Now, now you might think that we're talking about, right, that we're talking about the matanos, right, that was either today or yesterday, right, when the animal shechter shehumer shmashma v'shnishku me'admosh, right, or that they were separated yesterday, or either today, right, shehumer me'hayom v'shnidu me'hayom, or shehumer me'amosh v'nishku me'amosh, or they're done yesterday, and that's the machlokas. When doesn't make a difference was done. So mani mas nisan, who is our mission like? And l'chara, it's not so kasach v'daisach, right? It says it pretty beferish, right? Emel chal matas l'kohen b'yantav bein shehumer me'amosh bein shehumer me'ayon, right? And l'chara, the gifts matanos are the same. So mani mas nisan lo Rabbi Yosi, lo Rabbi Yehuda elachirim. It's not going to be like the opinion of Rabbi Yosi or Rabbi Yehuda, who we're going to bring right in a few minutes. Elachirim. Rather, it's the opinion of the achirim. Tanya. Now let's see this. We're going to have a long brisa, which is explain different understanding of the machlokas, right? Of the machlokas of when are we delivering it, And what are we delivering? And when were those separated? So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, loy nechlu beis Shammai ubeis Hillel al matanos shehu me'erev Yontif. Shemalichim im matanos shehu mehayom v'shenishchtu mehayom. This right off the bat is different than we've been learning till now, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, right, Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, right, are not arguing on stuff that were separated from yesterday, from Erev Yontif, right? That you're allowed to go ahead and take it, right? You can go ahead and take those, right, with stuff from today. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda's understanding is stuff that was separated today. When I say stuff, I'm referring to the challah and the matanos. If it was separated today, I'm allowed to go ahead and deliver it today. And since I'm allowed to deliver it today, I can also take stuff with me from stuff that was separated yesterday, from the challah and the gift and the matanos yesterday. So the challah and gifts of yesterday are allowed to go with the challah and matanos of today and deliver it to a kohanim. Beis Shammai would agree to that. So this is already different than the way we learn. So this is Rabbi Yehuda. The kachai is chaz. Yes, yes, right. So I said that earlier. Right. I'm just referring to it as matanos. The kachai Beis Shammai done it, and this is what Beis Shammai basically. This argument who Beis Hillel was challah matanos matan lekohen. Utruma matan lekohen. Challah matanos matan lekohen, and a truma is matan lekohen. Change malichnas that truma. Kachei malichnas that matanos. Just like you can't go ahead and take truma and give it to truma and yantiv, so too you can't take the matanos. So on Beis Hillel. Lo yamarta betruma shena zaka be'armasam. Tamar b'matana shezaka be'armasam. But you can't say that because by truma they're not zoich in it, right? An yantif. However, they are zoich to matanos. You just can't deliver it. So that was Rabbi Yehuda's understanding of machlokes. Now, Amar Rabbi Yosi, lo nechlaku beis Shammai ubeis Hillel al matanos shemalichin. They both agree you can go ahead and deliver matanos shemalichin. Lo nechlu el al truma. They only argue on truma. All right. So once again, this is also not similar to our Mishnah. They say over here that Beis Shammai doesn't even argue when it comes to matal. Since you can go ahead and separate it on Yantif, you can also go ahead and deliver it. No issue, right? Beis Shammai says a malichin, and when it comes to truma, and Beis Hillel says malichin. Bekach hayu Beis Hillel done. And this was what the Beis Hillel said back to Beis Shammai. Chala matanos matana lekohen u'truma matana lekohen. Chala matanos are matana lekohen and u'truma matana lekohen. Shem shalichas matanos kach malichas truma. And just I can go ahead and take matanos, so too I can go ahead and deliver truma. So Beis Shammai. Lo even marta matanos shezaka masam. No, you can only say about matanos because there is zeicha them an yantif. Tell me about truma shein zaka masam, but you can't go ahead and take truma an yantif. And acher mamrim. And now the third opinion of the machlokes, we said l'chayra, our Mishnah goes like that. So this should sound familiar. So acher mamrim leinechu Beis Shammai Beis Hillel al hatruma she'ein malichin. Right? Everybody agrees you can't go ahead and take truma. Leinechu el matanos. They argue about matanos. Beis Shammai ein malichin, Beis Hillel ein malichin. Right? The Beis Shammai says you can't go ahead and take it, and Beis Hillel says you could go ahead and take the matanos. Right? So Leima Acherim v'lo Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say it's Acherim and not Rabbi Yehuda, and also not like Rabbi Yosi. Certainly Rabbi Yosi, because Rabbi Yosi, his shita is even more different than Rabbi Yehuda. So Mik Tani Shehumar Behayom v'Shinishtu Hayom. So remember, Rabbi Yehuda had a little connection. Rabbi Yehuda wanted to say that Beis Shammai perhaps agreed in the case of I'm allowed to go ahead and deliver stuff from today, and with the stuff from today, I can take the stuff from yesterday. So says Rava, Miktani Shehumar Mehayom Shinishko Mehayom. Does it say stuff that was separated today and shechted today? Shehumar Ktani. Maybe the shechita was from yesterday, and that's what Beis Shammai forbid. So if that's the case, If that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda not acher. If they're answering that which was from yesterday, so it means that you can go ahead and take the ones yesterday with the ones from today. So you can do it all together. So if that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda and acher are really saying Rabbi Yehuda are saying the same thing. See, tefela, right? They said no. The difference is, as we pointed out earlier, what can be brought. Even according to Beis Shammai, they have to be brought according to one opinion. The Rabbi Yehuda, it has to be brought to yesterday's, it has to be brought with today's. But according to the Acherim, you can take yesterday's alone without today's. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halacha ka Rabbi Yosi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, that you can't take it at all. Rav Tuvi Brei, the Rav Nechemia Havile Garba de Chama de Truma. He had a whole big jug or barrel of wine, of truma wine. Also, the comment of Yosef, Amar Lo, Mahu Lamtuya L'Kohen Ha'ina. Can I go ahead and bring it to a Kohen today? So Amar Lei, Hachi Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Halacha Rabbi Yosef. Right? The halacha is like Rabbi Yosef, because Rabbi Yosef was the one who says.
The whole barrel was truma, or
Right, so
truma
I
had to be separated.
So I think that the whole barrel was. In other words, he probably had multiple jugs or barrels. Right. So Rabbi Yossi says, right?
Focus in Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai is on truma, not on the matzah.
Right. So right. Beis Shammai says Emelichin. Beis Hillel says Malichin. So according to Beis Hillel, you could take it. So, right.
Along with your.
Yes. Yes. But it doesn't even have to be along with. You can take it independently on its own. Right.
Oh.
But right now, the Rava Bar Rav Chanan. So one time the host of Rava Bar Chanan Havile Israisa de Chardua. He had a whole bundle of mustard seeds. So can I go ahead and crumble this, right? And go ahead and eat on Yantif, right? Now crumble for l'tzarach. So lo havi biyadei. So he didn't know the answer. Also, the Rava came for Rava. So Amarle Molilin Melilais Mafrichin Kinias Biyontif. You can go ahead and crumble it or rub it and make it small on Yontif. Say Svei, you're allowed to do something that normally you can't normally do. Can't normally do with grains when you're preparing it. Right. You can't normally grind, right? You can't grind things, but for the Sarachila, you can do it, right? So Svei Abaye. Hamoilel Melilos Me'erev Shabbos, one who goes ahead and he rubs, right? He starts, the grains. He rubs it before Shabbos, right? And therefore he adds some chaff there. And Lamachar Menapech Miyad Liyad Ve'echa. You can go ahead and separate it from hand to hand and eat it. Aval, but Loi B'kanan V'loi B'tamchui. But he can't do it with something in a funnel, something with a large space. They do it for a large amount. And Hamayla Malilos Erev Yantif. Now one does it on Erev Yantif, right? Lamachar on Yantif itself. Menapeach al yad yad. You can go ahead and throw it from hand to hand, but eat it. And afilu bekanan vafilu betamchu, right? And even with these other things that sort of separated these other vessels. Avalo betavlav lebenafava bekibra. But now it was with these things that are more commercial size separators. Right? So Me'erev Yantif in B'Yantif Lo. It sounds like only if you crumbled it, right? You started it before Yantif, not on Yantif. So even if you're going ahead and snacking on it, right? So L'chaira, you can't do it on Yantif. So how could Rava Matir the case of crumbling over there the mustard? If we see over here that you can't crumble there, we're just talking about separating the chaff. If you want to go ahead and snack on it. So Filatema B'Yantif, some say no, even you can do it on Yantif. Right? So why did it say Erev Yantif? Why did it say Hamola Melilos Erev Yantif? It should say Hamola Melilos B'Yantif. Right? I feel the name of Yantif. I did Tana Ratio, Erev Shabbos, Tana Say Benami Erev Yantif. Same Kane. If that's the case, Matzina Truma Shazaka Barama. Right? We see that Truma can be Zeicha, right? And Yantif. Utanan Lo Ima Martin B'Truma Shena Zaka Baramasa. Right? Because the Chayra, once you go ahead and you separate the chaff, that's when it comes Chai for Truma. So now you're making it to that point where it's Chai for Truma. Right? So what do you say there? So Gemara was just a one there, like Kasha. Ha Rebbe used it. Machos bin Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. What is that? The Tanya. Hichnis Shibolim, one who goes in and brings in grain into the house. La'asais man Isa to make a dough. If it's for the purpose of bringing it in the house, but you're still going to use it and process it further into dough, then you can go ahead and snack on it. You're allowed to snack on things that aren't its finished product, right? Upater, and he's pater from Truma. Lemolin bil milos. However, he's going to go ahead and bring it up for the purpose of snacking. Then Rebbe Mechayiv, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda pater. Rebbe says you're chayiv to go ahead, and Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda says pater. So according to that case, according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, you're not chayiv for truma because you're only, even though you're snacking on it, it's the final case. But since it's still snacking, you're not making it into dough. Therefore, you're pater, and that would be the case of there where you can do it on a yantaf. The price according to him, the others would hold that you are chayiv when you bring it in, if that's going to be your final purpose. And the discussion continues tomorrow. Everyone have a wonderful day and shkayach.